ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
When I was 8 years old, my family packed up and moved into a new home. So this house was actually passed down from generation to generation. And we were the first family to move in that had no relation to the original owners. So naturally, weird things started happening right away. Doors were opening and shutting by themselves. People were feeling touched. People were seeing apparitions. But this is my story. This is what happened to me, and it's really kind of hard to believe. But like I said, this house had been passed down from generation to generation, and over the years, the owners had put additions to the home. So when I first moved in when I was 8 years old, I lived in one of the rooms that had been an addition. It wasn't from the original build. And I never had anything weird happen to me in any of the rooms that I moved into that were, part of the addition until my brothers moved out and I took over their space downstairs. You see, their room was one of the original bedrooms in the house. And I just didn't think anything weird would happen. I was not worried about it at all. I knew my house was haunted, but I never had anything quite that scary happen to me until then. So, have you heard of shadow people? If you have, that's what I was dealing with in that room. So it started off where I would just see them every once in a while, like once a month, then a couple times a month, several times a week, to almost every single night. Now this went on my whole high school career until I was in my early 20s when I still lived with my parents. Ask me why I dealt with it, I can't explain, but it just sort of became like a normal routine for me. I wasn't sure if it was just my eyes playing tricks, to be honest, or if it was actually happening. But it did get to the point I was so frustrated with it that I would literally wake up in the middle of the night, see the shadow figure standing there, and throw some fists in the air like I was trying to punch something that was invisible. I was getting very frustrated with it at that point. And the way I would see these shadow figures, the best way I can describe it is like the silhouette of a person. So you can't really tell like what kind of clothing they're wearing or if they even have hair. It's just a plain silhouette. For me, I would see maybe one or two at a time. Some looked like they were standing, some looked like they were sitting or kneeling close to the floor. Here's where it got really scary. So when I was in my early 20s, me and my husband now, we were dating. I think we were engaged at the time, and he crashed with me in my room. And that night, I woke up and I had a very different shadow figure in my room. Like I said, the other shadow figures that I had seen before were just like a plain silhouette of a person, but this one was much bigger. It sort of looked like it was wearing maybe a jacket or something heavy, because I couldn't really see the silhouette of the shape of their body really. And this one was wearing a hat. It sort of looked like a top hat. Now, if you're still following along and you know what shadow figures are and you've heard of the Hat Man, the story gets better. So not only was the shadow figure quite different than the rest, but this one was fully up against my bed. And this one was actually touching me, grabbing my arm and pulling me. I woke up in such fear. I literally felt like my soul was being wrestled away from my body. I don't know how to explain it, but I was screaming and I was jumping on top of my husband trying to get away from this thing, whatever it was. And my husband woke up. Well, he was my fiance at the time, but he woke up and he starts screaming, get off of her, get off of her. He has no idea what's even going on or what's happening. And then if you've ever experienced shadow figures, like once your eyes adjust and you sit with it for a few seconds, they sort of just like fade away. And they did. There were regular shadow figures standing in the room at the time with this bigger hatted one, and they eventually just disappeared. And the crazy thing about it is that eventually, you know, me and my husband got married, we moved into our own home together, and I had gotten so used to seeing these shadow figures every night that I thought this is the way of life for me. When I moved into the new home, I noticed the first night I was there, I didn't see them. And I'm 37 years old now, and I have not seen a shadow figure standing in my room, not ever again. It wasn't until about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, after this had happened to me, that I saw a documentary online just talking about shadow people, and the most infamous one, the scariest one, the Hat Man. This is a figure that a lot of people have encountered and described this figure with a hat. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Like, it's so hard to believe that this happened to me, and that I had to share this story because, yeah, I think that's I can't even believe it. I know a lot of other people won't either, but it did. You can ask my husband.